One of the greatest inspirations we can have is hearing another person's testimony of someone that's been on the road, someone that is on the road, and they're walking it, they're working it, and they're experiencing that freedom. When we hear other people's stories, it gives us ourselves encouragement to maybe take the steps necessary as we look at the wreckage of our past, or maybe the circumstances of our present, and in hopes of a better future, that maybe we'll be inspired to take that step, that courageous, brave step to walk into the recovery space toward healing and freedom, so that we can find purpose in our pain. Today, we're going to hear from a brother in Christ and a life change story. Welcome to Celebrate Recovery Official, a podcast that shares life change stories, courage, hope, and leadership wisdom, all centered around the Celebrate Recovery principles based on the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus gives us a pretty cool roadmap to help us face those hurts in our life, ultimately some of those hang-ups, some of those lies that we may be believing about ourselves, God, and others, and even face those habits, or we could call them defenses or protections that we fall into that cause havoc on our relationships with the Father and each other, to ultimately lead to healing and new healthy practices as God designed. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. My name is Rodney. I'm the Global Field Director with Celebrate Recovery. And hey, welcome. So glad you're back with us today. Just want to keep sounding this gong. Thank you for the suggestions, seeing some good ideas for podcast topics. And I promise you I've got those on my list, and I'm working my way down through them. But thank you for those ideas you're emailing me, and especially thank you for the reviews and taking a second to write a review if you like what you're hearing. If you don't, call me personally. I'd love to hear it, and we can try to make that better. But we'd appreciate your 5-star review and writing a few words to let other folks know how this is impacting you. And thanks as always for sharing this with other people. But hey, I love life change stories, testimonies, because they really do bring an encouragement, as I mentioned. And I'm excited for you to hear a little bit, just a piece of life change story from my brother Patrick. He's all the way in Arizona, and he's the ministry leader at Calvary Baptist Church, and they meet every Monday night faithfully. I've been there, shared my testimony there. Such a sweet group. Meet on Mondays at 6:30. If you are in that area and want to check them out, you can go to calvaryaz.com/recovery. I know they always have an empty seat waiting for new people to come check it out, and I know they'd love to have you. But Patrick, thanks so much for being willing to come and share your story, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So go ahead and give us your introduction as you do in CR, and then we'll jump into a conversation, man.
Absolutely. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who celebrates recovery over sexual addiction, substance abuse, and life issues. And my name is Patrick.
Hey, Patrick. So glad you're here. And folks can't see her, but your sweet wife is behind you, Juliana. We can't hear her either, so just trust me when she's waving and smiling. Sweet partner in ministry with you, But man, thanks for being here. And we've been talking about this for a few months now, and we finally coordinated our schedules to be able to have this conversation. But man, I'd love to jump in. You have an incredible story, and never enough time to hear the full scope of it. But give us a picture, man, of what's Patrick's life. What does it look like pre-recovery? What's happening in your life that's causing the chaos?
Oh man. So, where do I start? At the beginning? So, I'm thoroughly back. I have a rich background as a Southern Baptist preacher's kid, with plenty of, plenty of exposure to cultural Christianity in the Deep South, and I grew up at the parsonage next door to the church. Dad was a full-time pastor when I was growing up, and I got kind of firsthand got to see what that hypocrisy embodied really looked like, and had a pretty profound impact on my upbringing, and initially had plans to go into vocational ministry and follow in the footsteps of my father, and felt the call to do that, and made a profession of faith at an early age. 8 years old, was baptized, and a lot of things happened that were outside of my control. But at the core of it, Rodney, I made a decision when I went to college to really just depart from that path and choose my own way of what I thought was best, and basically decided to make a career shift and kind of did my own thing in college and got a degree. Went on to pursue a career as a healthcare provider. Got a graduate degree. Had a pretty successful career. Married my high school sweetheart. 17 years this month.
Wow.
So, it wasn't too long ago now. So, and I had 2 beautiful kids, and I had this hidden life that nobody really knew about that, kind of started with an early pornography addiction that began, around 9 years old when I was exposed to that at a slumber party at my Little League baseball coach's house. So,
wow.
And man, that spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
From there.
Well, and it's just good for our listeners to hear, especially if they're new to this arena, that I kind of imagine a 9-year-old kid just trying to kind of find himself. It's hard enough to grow and try to mature and find ourselves, and it just takes that one time that can kind of pull us into this world that we never thought we would be in. And so you're at this party and visiting friends at a house, and 9-year-old boy sees things that his eyes shouldn't see right now, and I'm starting to feel things that I didn't know were there. And what is this all about? I'm sure that creates a lot of confusion in that 9-year-old kid's heart.
Absolutely, it does. And the tragedy of that is that I didn't have the open dialogue with either one of my parents to really process that adequately. And that trust piece wasn't there, and that's not their fault, I don't think. I don't know at what point you have that conversation. My gosh, they probably had no idea that was even going to be an issue at 9 years old. Yeah. So, by the time they did have that conversation, I was already in, and I was reading a study the other day. Kids are, the average age of exposure to pornography is around 7 to 8 years old now.
Yeah.
And that's the average, and it's just it's so pervasive in our society.
Yeah, and iPhones weren't even in the picture at this point. Yeah,
this was dial-up days.
Yeah,
this was back when we had to get on AOL and hear all those funny noises to access the internet. So.
Yeah, you've got mail. Yeah, I think that. So it's at our kids' fingertips now, and so. This is good while we're talking about this, because it's a good reminder for me, just even with my grandkids. It's like I need to be intentional with conversations. But so, man, how did that kind of, I'm guessing it progressed, the addiction, which is typical with addictions. What did that look like? I'm guessing it didn't get better.
No, it didn't. It started really as just a curiosity, Rodney. It was novel, and it was intriguing, and it was this new world that I didn't know about. And man, I remember lingerie catalogs being, that was pornography to a 9-year-old. That's where it started. And I found really quickly that this childhood home that I had that was divisive. And my mother, I love my mother, and she's probably going to listen to this. So, Mom, I love you. And, but for a lot of years, she had a lot of untreated mental health issues that really were a barrier to her being fully available to us as a family, and certainly created a lot of division between her and my father. And there was a lot of fighting. I remember when I was younger. My dad being early in ministry, I'm not 100% sure, but I remember there being some resistance to that from her, and and just the strain that was. My dad went to seminary around the time I was, I think, 8 when we moved to the DFW Metroplex, and the financial strain of that was tough because he was going to school full time, and he was trying to work other jobs to make to pay bills, and man, you go from being a small business owner and a petroleum engineer, and then you go do that. It's a huge lifestyle change. And there was a lot of strain. Those are hard years. We were there for 5 years. So it became this kind of welcome escape from, the reality that I didn't want to be in anymore.
Yeah.
And, how often does that happen to us as young, vulnerable people that don't know how to process that stuff? We find a way out that's convenient, and we chase that way out because it's easy.
Yeah. Well, and I just feel like I want to kind of hold moms and dads for a minute, just a second. And you said it, and I'm just going to put an exclamation point on what you said. This process of recovery is not a shame fest, a bashing session, right? We're not trying to blame our parents. I'm actually teaching a spiritual inventory tonight. I'm going to talk about this, but we're actually just trying to, when we can lean into our story to understand, to be honest, we're not dishonoring our family. I mean, my kids have things that they have to talk about that, even if we're not trying to hurt each other, we live in a broken world and we forget that, and so we're not, I love that you said that. I love you, Mom. This isn't a bashing session, but the effects of living in a broken world, we're going to hurt each other. And the question is, what do we do with it? And so what a cool thing that we have a safe space to be honest, which is the most honoring thing we can do for ourselves and our family, right?
Absolutely. And, and on the back end, if you fast forward, I've had the opportunity to have some just super fruitful conversations with her and just, lay it all out there and offer her forgiveness and she's, she's so much better now than she was, and so open to this process. And she gets to see the fruit that God has created in my life, and see that there is hope, and even when there's difficult situations, there's God can redeem it.
I love that.
So,
well,
absolutely.
I think so the addiction, numbing, and sometimes we're afraid to say this. If it didn't feel good, we wouldn't do it, right? I mean, there is a reason. It's like this does feel good, and that's kind of the enemy's open door. Is like, don't you want to feel better? Don't you want to feel strong? Don't you want comfort? Don't you want a sense of an identity? And so all these things that Jesus is really the ultimate one that can fill all those voids. He comes with this false narrative and some knockoffs that, if we're being honest, do temporarily kind of provide that, which then it hooks us in, and now we're in the stuck place of kind of, I don't know how to get out of this, but yeah, the addiction, it is to escape, and it's to numb it. There's something I'm running from, and it sounds like you were just trying to kind of run from some underlying issues.
Yeah, I was, and there's also the component that's also a choice in that, though, isn't there? So, I knew that it was wrong.
Sure.
But yet I didn't have the power to stop it on my own volition, and man, it grew, and it kind of, we got, if you get ahead into my teenage years, we're out of the Metroplex area. We'd moved to this rural town where I really kind of came of age. And, my dad's pastor in a small church in rural Northeast Texas. And, man, we got DSL. We got broadband internet at my house, and things took off then. Then those pictures used to kind of load just a little one slice at a time. And then the floodgates kind of came open, and
wow.
So I kind of rode that technology wave, as many of us millennials did, and kind of saw that whole transformation of that industry. And things really got off out of hand when I went to college, and got some independence, and dorm room, and just no accountability really from anybody. So that's when things got real bad.
Yeah, well, that's the enemy's lie, and the strategy with the enemy is if you crave it, just feed it more and the satisfaction will go away, but it actually increases the the hunger and the thirst for it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And never satisfies. So, ma'am, it's kind of getting worse. You're in college. Tell me, there's a breaking point coming where it just felt like, okay, this thing is way, it's already out of hand, but we can live in denial for a long time, and it's not that bad, kind of thing, right?
Man, I lived in denial of that until I was 33.
Wow.
I knew it was bad, and but things got really out of hand. I started experimenting with alcohol when I was in high school, like a lot of young people do, and I went to college, and that didn't change, and the access to that got easier. I never really experimented with drugs. I was always I was a football player, so I was always getting drug tested. I was always nervous about, doing all that. And that always kind of kept me away from, any illicit substances, until later in my life. And, kind of just was using alcohol, but really that was more just partying and trying to have a good time. But, in retrospect, like I wasn't drinking every day to numb the pain kind of thing. It was I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go have this fun experience instead of, to kind of run away from what life is, So that became an easy path of just looking for escape in general. I think, regardless of what the modality was, I was looking for escape, really. So. But things got really out of hand. If you fast forward, we had moved from the Central Arkansas area. I went to Go Bears. I went to UCA. So we went to we ended up moving kind of back close to the same area that I grew up in, and we bought a house. I started a great job at a local hospital, and man, I was kind of living the dream, and things got real out of hand when I started to step outside my marriage relationship. After a while, that pornography becomes not enough.
Yeah.
And man, I was at a work training event in Dallas for my job, and had you mix alcohol in with it, and a coworker that you've known for a while, and things get stupid real quick, and that's what happened. And that kind of started me down a path of like full on, a pattern of infidelity, really is what that started. So, and, I that continued for a little while, and the guilt that came along with that, with the fact that I had betrayed my wife, and really just, man, the shame that I felt from that, and that caused me to really kind of spiral, and that's really when things got pretty dark, is when that first, when that happened.
Yeah.
After that, I started working at.
Yeah. And so, some infidelities happening, and your wife learns of it, or kind of what's that point? Do you could bring it to her, or what? How does that all?
I was a professional hider. So she had no idea. And I was probably, I don't know how old I was at the time. I was probably 29, 30. So, I hid this stuff from her for a long time. She didn't even know I had a pornography issue, when I finally came clean to her, and after I got into recovery. But this pattern of behavior, this pattern of infidelity continued. And I thought, well, if I just move out of state and go get a fresh start, and I'll pick up everything, and I'll move 2,000 miles from where I am, and then my problems won't follow me. Well, guess what? All those broken belief systems, and all those bad habits, and all the junk that comes along with the human condition when you don't have Christ as the center of your life, that stuff goes with you everywhere until you do something about it. It doesn't matter where you are, because unfortunately you follow you everywhere. So and wherever you go, there you are. Since I was blaming everybody else for my problems, I wasn't taking responsibility for it. I thought that it was a geography issue. Well, it wasn't a geography issue. It was a Patrick issue. And so when I picked my family up and we moved to Arizona, my problems came with me, and they really got a lot worse and accelerated, because that's when I discovered that alcohol gave me a hangover, but California pot did not. So I switched pretty quickly to being a daily cannabis user, and man, it was really good at getting me out of my head.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a good reminder. It just kind of brings a thought to mind that, sometimes we shift addictions, right? And if we don't deal with the heart, and I would say this often, that the problem is not the problem, right? The alcohol and even the marijuana, that's not the problem. Infidelity is, all these are problems, but they're not the root problem. And so we have to get underneath that. Otherwise, we do keep shifting to other things like, well, I'll stop this, but I start this. And so we have to get to the heart of the matter. So now you're shifting addictions to marijuana. It's like, oh, maybe this will be the solution to my pain. And that's a lot.
Well, it really became just a coping mechanism. And unfortunately, it really got in the way of my productivity. It really started to affect my quality of work. It really started to affect obviously it affected my already troubled relationship with my wife and my kids. And, Dad just wasn't available then. And I was still out, trying to fulfill, what I thought was a lack of intimacy from my wife, which was hilarious to think about now.
We'll find ways to justify.
It's comical how we justify these things. Oh, it's her fault. No, it's definitely not her fault. It's incredible that I thought that she was the problem, but she was not. So I was still trying to fulfill those physical, what I thought were normal physical needs. And, really, right at the end of the day, I was just trying to fill that, Blaise Pascal talks about a God-shaped hole in every man's heart. And that's what I was trying to fill. Yeah. What I didn't know is I needed Christ to take over my life. I tell people sometimes, man, I kind of had that demon faith. I knew about God, and I knew that he existed, even though at times I certainly heavily doubted my faith and tried to justify and rationalize God away. And I did that for a long time. I went to school a lot, got a lot of college hours and a lot of science. And you kind of do those things with some of that. Sometimes you start to question things, which can be healthy, but for me was very detrimental. Not the questioning, just the doubt and the turning away was detrimental. But I was searching for something that I didn't have. I didn't know what it was, and turns out it was God all along. He didn't go anywhere. I ran from him.
Yeah. Well, I want to take a super quick break right here, Patrick. This is good stuff. I know, blessing me, I know our listeners are being blessed. I want to take a quick super break. When we come back, I want to kind of take us to that breaking point when enough was enough. Kind of the pain became greater than the fear of change, and kind of talk about what that path looks like. So talking to Patrick and hearing his life change story. Stick with me. I'll be right back. Hey friends, if you're looking for an online meeting, an additional meeting to your in-person meeting, we've got a great one every Wednesday, noon Pacific. Men and women from all over the world join us on this online meeting. We have a quick mini-moni, a testimony, a devotional, and then we break up into gender-specific groups and share or not share. Just listen if you want to, but we'd love to have you join us. Go to celebraterecovery.com. You can find the link and join us this Wednesday at noon Pacific. We hope that you'll join us this week. Welcome back, talking with Patrick and just hearing an incredible story. Excited to kind of turn the corner to kind of hear what God did in that mess and how he turned it into a message. But so Patrick, before the break, just kind of painting this picture of, man, things are getting messy. I'm justifying my behavior, accuse and excuse, as we say, accuse others, excuse ourselves. And, man, at what point does it become just too much? And what's that breaking point for Patrick?
I was on the heels of what thankfully was my final affair, and dealing with the emotional wreckage of that, and wrestling with that pain and that shame and that guilt and the emptiness and the the reality of what my life had become, and just I had begun to contemplate suicide. I had begun to really develop a method for which I would end my life, and I don't want to get too graphic about that, but I think that
the low point.
I was in a place where that was really the lowest point in my life, where I just did not feel like I had the will to live. I felt like my wife and my kids would be better off without me, because I was a burden to them, because I was I'm in this twisted logic. I'm like, I've got life insurance. They're going to be fine. They don't need me. Man, how the enemy uses that sometimes.
For sure.
So to help to lie and to destroy lives. And can I just encourage anybody listening right now, if you're there and you're contemplating a permanent solution to a temporary problem, can I just tell you to hold on? Just hold on and trust God, because He can change your life, and He can fulfill your needs, and He can give you purpose and a reason to live. And man, He did that for me. And thank God I didn't go through with what I was planning to do. And thank God, one of my now best friends, Jesse, had begun to meet with me, and under the guise of guitar lessons, which is hysterical. And looking back, and fast forward, we moved out here to Arizona. My wife had begun to drag me to church, and I've been singing and playing music since I was a kid. And I said, well, it looks pretty fun. I'm gonna join the worship band. So I tried out, and I made the band. And thank God I made the band. And Jesse started meeting with me to mentor me, and he really began to see that there was something deeper going on.
Well, we're going to go ahead and hit the pause button there, and we'll pick up with part 2 on our next episode. But I hope you're getting a sense of Jesus doesn't care where we are and what we've done. He just wants to be with us. And if we'll just surrender to Him, no matter what you've done, He wants us to invite Him into our mess, so that He can find purpose in our pain and find a message out of our mess. And we'll pick up with part 2 on our next episode, but I hope you're encouraged. And if you'd like more information about Celebrate Recovery, go to celebraterecovery.com and find a group near you. I know they'd love to join you wherever you are. Hey, thanks for being with me. We'll catch you next time. Until then, God bless.